All right, Lunice, I'm going to mute you. Let's play Mike Snatchers number 1. Let's go. Whoa.
Hey, it's Mike Snatchers here again with another beat breakdown. This time a quick one from the Kenny Beats battle with Lunice. This one got a little bit wild. But before we get into that, I wanted to let you know that I actually have a mixtape that I released yesterday. It has a mix of originals and some flips from people like A.K. Paul and Bauer. So please go check that out. There's a link in the description, and let's get into the breakdown. So the number one thing that people asked about this track is, how did I make the kick? How did I make it stand out? And the answer to that really is about the arrangement of the track. But before I get into that, let me just break down how I built and produced this kick. Here's the kick on its own. So you can tell that there's 2 layers here. The first one is this kind of sub/mid layer, and this other one is a mid-high layer. So starting with this sub layer, it sounds like this. This is originally a kick from Blake Skowron, so there's a lot of low information here. I'm using this Corpus preset called Kick Tight. In this case, it's kind of rolling off a little bit of those highs and really boosting the sub. And then moving on to the higher layer, this is a decap kick. But I took all the sub out of this, really just used the top, and then ran it through Camel Crusher plugin to kind of get a gritty effect. So that layering effect really helps a lot, especially that higher layer kind of helps that kick stand out in the mix quite a bit. However, this kick takes up quite a bit of room, not just on the spectrum, but it's kind of like a medium length kick. So if I did, something like put a big 808 underneath this, really quickly it's going to turn into this overly compressed, muddy, just mess of a track. And that's kind of what I mean about the arrangement of this. I started with this kick, built it knowing that it was going to be big and needed to stand on its own. And then from there, I kind of added other elements strategically, like the snares, claps, and then those remaining gaps that I had fit in bass and some other melodic elements. If I tried to just layer everything on top and ignore the pattern of the kick, then things just would not have turned out the same way. That wouldn't have hit, and it would have sounded pretty gross, to be honest. Here you can really see what I mean about filling in the gaps. So up here I have an 808, a bass from Mr. Carmack, and you can see visually that any time that there's a break between kicks, that's where the bass is sitting. That's where it's filling in the gaps. Not every time, but strategically picking spots where, in particular, it's not going to overlap with this sub layer here. And that does a couple of things. Again, make sure that I don't have phasing issues or anything like that. But it also comes up with a more interesting rhythm and make sure I don't have any just weird rumbling sounds in between my bass and my kick. There's plenty of instances where having your kick and an 808 together are going to sound great, and that is what you should do. In this case, because the kick and the sub is just so big on this, I did not want to even have to deal with that issue. And it makes the mix sound just way cleaner. So take a listen to those together. All right, now we're going to get to our sample from Lunice. So let's just go ahead and listen to that on its own. It's so insane. If you haven't watched more of Lunice's beat blogs, you got to check them out because they're all over the place. But that's the type of energy that I wanted to take and bring into this beat, was just that chaoticness and really, honestly, just ratchet it up. So I started with that sample. I found a few areas that I could either speed up, in this case, sped up and pitched up to get just kind of weird, chaotic sounds all together. I also wanted to include some little snippets of the sample that were a little bit more recognizable. I feel like that's kind of the point of a beat challenge and using a sample, is that people can recognize it in some form or the other. So I found this part here, kind of moved it into time with what I had. I still had to EQ at the low end because, again, there's just so much low end going on here. But I did strategically kind of place it here. You can see cuts off pretty much right before the bass and kick comes back in. All right, last thing, just to revisit this drum track a bit, I just kind of want to show you some of the little fills and other percussive elements I put into the beat altogether. So not a whole lot going on there, just little things sprinkled in. And sometimes the vibe, I like to put a ton of perks, lots and lots of layers, and just wasn't the move for this track. Oh yeah, last thing. This track is in 6/4 because, I don't know, it was fun. I think it's a really good idea to challenge yourself to go outside of that 4/4 type beat all the time because it forces you to make creative decisions that you probably just wouldn't do otherwise. Cool. Well, here's everything together. right, that's it for this breakdown. Thanks, Kenny, for putting on this battle. And if you like this video, I'm actually a 2-time Power Bot Battle champion as well. So go check out the breakdowns I made for those beats. Go stream my new mixtape, and I will see you next time.
Snatchers.